Hey folks, welcome back to Only Best Fancy Novels. My name is Robin, and today I want to talk to you about a book that I told myself I need to read well over 17 years ago, and I finally got to it. So better late than never, right? But anyway, this is KJ Parker's Devices and Desires, the first book of the Engineer trilogy. And this book follows Ziani Vatsis. I have no idea if I pronounced that right or not, but Ziani is an abomination, a man whose deviancy, when it is discovered, is sentenced to death. As a result of that, when he inevitably escapes and flees, hiding among the ragtag army, it becomes a race against time to capture him and kill him, because what makes Ziani dangerous is the information in his head, secrets that the Perpetual Republic are determined to keep secret at all costs. So it's a pretty interesting setup, and it only escalates from there. Like, KJ Parker has a talent for taking very stock fantasy settings, very stock fantasy characters, and doing some very interesting things with them. Some things, and that's exactly what we get here. So the first thing you noticed about this book is that in many ways it contains so many familiar elements of some of his other books that I've read. Like, first and foremost, he likes to include a very specific type of character in his books, often as the main character, and that's who we get in Ziani, for sure. The second thing is that he tends to recycle elements of his books into each other, and that's very much also what we get in this book. But at the same time, you can argue that it's not necessarily recycling, because his books are actually take place in a shared world of sorts. So for example, this book, there are certain parts of it that I feel like it was heavily inspired, or he heavily drew on certain elements of the Fencer trilogy when he wrote this. But given they're set in the same world, it could be argued that there's a logical reason why those similarities exist. So anyway, there's that kind of stuff that happens in the book. Setting that aside, we have Ziani himself, a man who seems driven to, with he has a mysterious drive, at least, to perform certain acts that would see the Perpetual Republic punished for what they did to him, while at the same time proclaiming at every turn his love of the Republic. So, to be specific, his issues with the people who run the Republic, not the Republic itself. So he's a very complicated character in that sense, because we never get the full picture with him. We are never told the full story. We don't. It's not like we have an internal monologue of his to follow. So we don't know what his end game is. In addition to that, he as someone who is essentially a foreigner in this land where he eventually ends up with, where he begins to put plans in place that will see his desires come to fruition. It makes him a very interesting character to follow, because you never know what you can trust when it comes to this guy. Like I said, KJ Parker tends to include a very specific type of character in his books, and Ziani is very much one of them. That said, there are a few other characters in here that are absolutely worth paying attention to. One of them is, and with these other characters, once again, KJ Parker takes what should be archetypes and gives us something that's different, same yet different. So, for example, we have a Duke who is incompetent, but the personality that this Duke has is not what you would typically expect an incompetent Duke in a fantasy novel to have. On the flip side of that coin, we have a Duke who is extremely good at what he does, and his particular personality is also a type of character that we tend to see in KJ Parker books. So I am very excited to see where that particular character goes in the future, what happens with him. And then the final character of note that we follow is Duchess, who, when things begin to happen, the agency that she displays is let's just say it's going to make things very interesting with the choices that she makes, especially given her particular position in this society and how it works. So that's kind of the gist of the characters that you follow for the most part of this book. And then we have the plot of the book, which, like I said, is it's a stock fantasy story in terms of you have like Warring Kingdoms and that kind of stuff, but it's the way KJ Parker implements these different elements that keeps things interesting. So the reason why these wars are fought are very interesting, to put it mildly, and it plays heavily into what kind of what KJ Parker wants to talk about this in this book, which is just one of the things, of course, is the stupidity of war, which he plays with in multiple ways. We have the when we consider how the Perpetual Republic thinks about war, when we consider how the two different dukedoms think about war, when we consider how certain other factions that appear, when how they approach these conflicts, and like it really starts to highlight how stupid war is among these people who so yeah, let's just say he has fun with that. Another thing that I really liked what he did with this book is the way that he portrays the Perpetual Republic, and the way that they're very fixated on precision, on things being done to an exacting standard, and no deviation from that standard is permitted, because this is a quote unquote the perfected version of that. But what makes it's an idea that it kind of plays on the whole idea of like an industrial revolution, and the way that machines quote unquote perfect certain processes, but at the same time you begin to wonder what you lose in the what you lose when you make that trade-off. Given the recent trends with AI and the way that it's going to quote unquote revolutionize certain areas and certain fields, this is something that it can make you think a little more, because everything has a trade-off, right? So in this world we see that with the Perpetual Republic, their dedication to standard results in the death of innovation, in the death of creativity. And this is taken to a ridiculous extreme with them, by the way. This is not just about the way that they manufacture things. It drills right down into the way that their very lives are constructed. And that's something that is beginning to seep into us in our real world. Like when you think about certain processes that you would have to engage with over the course of your life, and the way that they removing the human element from that aspect of it, the way the impact that has on where our society is headed. It's quite a obviously this book was written older, so this is not something that was like a theme of his, but it is something that, given the setup that he creates, it seeps into your mind and it makes you think. So I'll kind of stop there, because that's kind of a rabbit hole I could go down for quite a while, and I really don't want to talk about this too much. Oh god. So yeah, what else did I really want to say about this book? In terms of the world building, like I said, it's pretty standard for KJ Parker. This book is very much part of his shared world, with so many of his other stories. I actually picked out references here and there, so you can watch out for those, depending on how much KJ Parker you've read. It kind of made me decide I should probably read his books moving forward in chronological order. In terms of publication order. That way I can see how his older works have influenced his future work. So, yeah. And obviously, as you know, KJ Parker, well, as you might or might not know, KJ Parker tends to pick a particular topic that he really wants to drill in on and explore where it comes to where it comes to a particular book. And in this one, the focus is very much on mechanical engineering, and a very specific type of mechanical engineering at that. So yeah, all in all, what else can I say? But it just reads like a very standard KJ Parker story. It's his standard setting. The characters all read like they obviously have very different personalities and very different quirks and these kind of things, but the archetypes are very much there for the type of characters he likes to play with. And in terms of the story that he has to tell, once again, it's familiar stories where it comes to him, but the way that everything is put together and executed, the different twists and the different turns, and the way that these elements are arranged are what makes this book different and more engaging than what he's written to date. Like, when I was done this book, first and foremost, one of my first thoughts was that this reads almost like an upgraded version of his Colors in the Steel, of one of the books in his of Colors in the Steel. It reads like that to some extent, or a variant of it, you can say. So yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on these Vices and Desires. I'm very excited to see what happens in the next book, Evil for Evil, given where this one left off, with I think the two characters that I like the most in this book, essentially ending up in the same place. I'm really excited to see where it goes from there. So yeah, I think that's all I really have to say about Devices and Desires, a book that I've been meaning to read literally 17 years and change at this point. Yeah, so if you've made it this far into the video, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.